In this video, I'm going to show you how to simplify a portrait into just 5 values. By the end, you'll see how this one exercise can massively improve your shading, your structure, and your overall decision making when drawing. So where do we start? I'm not going to jump straight into the portrait just yet. The first step is setting up 5 value boxes. These boxes will act as our entire value range, from the lightest lights to the darkest darks. I'm numbering them 1 to 5 so you can easily reference them as I draw. Now, this might seem quite simple and almost an unnecessary step, just drawing boxes, but this step is actually where your entire drawing is decided. If your values aren't clear here, they won't be clear in your portrait, so it's worth spending a few minutes making sure each value is distinct and separated from each other. Just take your time. It's much easier to fix things here than later on in the portrait. Make sure you stick around because in a moment I'm going to highlight one of the biggest mistakes people make when doing value exercises, and more importantly, how you can completely avoid it. As I move on to the actual drawing, I'm not thinking about the details yet. I'm just thinking in shapes, those big, simple shapes. Think of it as mapping out the skeleton of the portrait. Instead of seeing individual features like an eye, a nose, lips, I'm asking myself, which value does this area belong to? Is it a 2, a 3, or a 4? And I place it accordingly. At this early stage, I'm keeping everything quite light. I don't want to commit too early, because if I do, it becomes harder to adjust. The purpose of this exercise isn't to copy perfectly, it's to make decisions. Here's an example. You might notice 2 slightly different tones in your reference photo. With only 5 values though, you have to decide whether to merge them into one shape or to keep them separate. These decisions are what builds a strong drawing, not the tiny details, not the texture, but your choices in value. If you're finding this helpful so far, go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to the Portrait Guru. It really helps me make more content like this and ensures you don't miss future videos on portrait drawing and shading in the future. As I continue, I'm grouping shapes together and replacing complexity. The goal is clarity. I want the image to read clearly, even from a distance. A good trick here is to step back every now and again, and also squinting at your drawing. If the portrait still makes sense with squinting, your values are working perfectly. Now let's keep pushing the darker values. This is where things begin to become a lot clearer. The contrast increases and the structure of the face becomes clearer. This is also the stage where having those 5 value boxes is really helpful. I can just constantly check back and make sure I'm staying within my value range. This prevents the drawing from becoming muddy or overworked. One thing I see a lot of beginners do, and here's the mistake I promised you earlier, is trying to capture every single tone they see in the reference, every tiny detail, every subtle shadow. That's not the goal of this exercise. You don't need to capture literally everything. In fact, leaving some areas out often makes your drawing stronger. By simplifying, merging shadows, and keeping the overall image clean, you allow the important shapes to really stand out. And here's another tip. Don't be afraid to exaggerate slightly. You can push your darks a little darker or lighten certain areas to make the forms read better. Remember, this isn't about copying. It's about interpreting what you see in a way that makes the portrait clear. Once you've laid down the basic values, I start refining a little. I look at the edges between the shapes. Are they soft or hard? Also lost? Do they transition smoothly? This is another way to guide the viewer's eye and emphasize form without adding unnecessary detail. You can really see how everything is built from those 5 initial value decisions. Nothing here is random. Every shadow, every midtone, every highlight is connected back to what that original structure is. That's the magic of simplifying your value range. I'd love to know how you get on with this exercise. Leave a comment below. Let me know what challenges you ran into and what worked best for you. Sharing your experience can also help others. Value studies aren't just about shading. They teach you structure, composition, and clarity of thought. They train you to make confident decisions, which is something you'll carry over into all of your drawings, no matter how complex they become. So if you take anything away from this video, let it be this. Start with your values, simplify shapes, make confident choices, and don't be afraid to experiment. Keep challenging yourself and you'll see massive improvements in your portraits. To take this a step further, I'm creating 2 more studies alongside this one, using the same reference, but in each study, I'm experimenting slightly with the values. Maybe in one I push the darks further, in another I compress the mid-tones, just mixing up the different sort of values in these 2 studies. And this is something I highly recommend you try as well. Using the same reference for multiple value studies forces you to think critically. It trains your eye to see values faster and improves your decision making. Doing the same approach over and over won't get you nearly as far out as experimenting like this. You can just do it in the corner of your sketchbook before you do a final drawing. What are the key values of a landscape, a portrait, or the still life that you're drawing? By mapping out all the values that you see and limiting your values, it will make for a stronger drawing going forwards. So I really do highly recommend you drawing little thumbnails in your sketchbook. You can see that I've tried to map out the key values here. So the darkest darks, the lights, the midtones, and also the highlights. You can also see that I've merged the side shadow on the right hand side. And this sort of value study is all about making the right choices and just seeing what works and what doesn't. Your value study might look completely different to mine, but if you followed along, I'd love to know how you got on. Alright, so grab your pencils, set up your value boxes and start experimenting. And if you try this exercise, let me know in the comments. I'd love to see how you create and hear how it changes your approach to drawing. Past masters like Van Gogh, Rembrandt, to Rubens did this exercise time and time again within their artistic practice. It's a tried and tested method, which I really do highly recommend you trying out. And if it worked for them, it can definitely work for us as well. And here's the final artwork. And here's a few value studies of portraits that I've done in the past to give you further inspiration. And if you liked this video, I highly recommend checking out this video coming up to improve your shading even more, taking the principles from this video into a still life drawing.